Please welcome to the stage interviewer Seth Cohen, Chief Impact Officer Forbes, and singer and songwriter Kirk Franklin.
Got Miss Cohen. Sit down.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, y'all. I can't lie. I've been excited about this all day, all month. Pretty much since I watched the Henry Louis Gates documentary Gospel on PBS earlier this year. And if y'all haven't watched it, you got to watch this. There is an entire section of this documentary about you, Kirk. Wow. You are a bridge between so much of the gospel tradition and the gospel future. But before we get into what maybe is exciting about that, maybe what are some of the roadblocks of that, I want to just, when you were with the family and you started your trajectory, your journey, man, what were you thinking? What were you thinking when you redefined the game of gospel music?
Well, first of all, I'm very honored to be here with you, Seth, and thanks for the opportunity. And to be honest with you, I didn't start with the family. My first major opportunity was with the choir called the Georgia Mass Choir. It was in 1990, 91, and I wrote a song called Joy. And it ended up being a song that brought opportunities to me. Yep. And I came here to Atlanta to record the song. It's on YouTube. You can see it. I still had that S curl, and I didn't know the trajectory. There was no master plan. Yeah. There was no game plan. It's like,
Well, not to your knowledge. There may have been somebody that had a master plan.
Somebody had a master plan. It just wasn't Kirk, right? And so I didn't know that these songs, because I'm not a singer. I just God loaned me this gift of songwriting. Yeah. And so I would write songs, and I've been playing since I was 4. So being able to play the music, and be able to play the melodies, and to be able to have lyrics and stories given to me from heaven, I've been just grateful to just try to tell the story of the greatest love story ever told, and I'm still trying my best to do that today.
Well, when we were talking backstage, I mentioned, it's funny, I'm like a nice Jewish boy. That I like to think I'm a nice Jewish boy. My wife's in the audience. She can tell you if I am or not. But when I first started listening to music in the gospel tradition, I thought to myself, man, I'm down with bringing some Saturday night into my Sunday morning. And then I remembered that I actually go to synagogue on Saturdays, not Sundays, so it was confusing.
Hilarious.
But what
that is
changed?
Fun, bro.
But what changed when you were doing it alone? I mean, I think you have been the architect of shifting to the choir, to the movement. So you had the family, you have now the nation, and we're watching Elevation Music, we're watching Maverick, we're watching some of that tradition in the praise and worship line. But when did you realize you couldn't do it alone? And you needed the choir, you needed the family, you needed the nation.
Well, some of that, interestingly, has to do with my own personal life. I was adopted, and I don't have family. And that's the reason why I called the first group Kirk Franklin and the Family, because I wasn't raised with cousins and relatives. Yep. It was me and this older lady that adopted me, and it was a very lonely life. So I've always enjoyed community, and that's what kind of gave me that context. And so that's why I call it the family, or whether it's God's property or the new nation. I've always loved being able to teach people these songs and they can sing it. And so, and there is that evolution of that into Maverick City or even Elevation. But the difference is that there's still something very at its core about the Black story. Yeah. That exists in gospel music that does not always exist in this transition. Yeah. And so, unfortunately, a lot of times these moments are still without the struggle of what Black people have gone through. Yeah. That has always been the soundtrack of gospel music.
Well, let's dig into that, because, again, this was something I learned when I started doing kind of my research and really getting into it, is that the gospel tradition, but particularly publishing, has been a roadmap for so many artists. I mean, we talk about Thomas Dorsey, we talk about Chicago coming out. I mean, that was very quickly artists understood it wasn't just performing. It was owning the sheet music.
Yeah.
It was owning the music. So tell me a little bit about the business side of that and how you've thought about it, because that seems to be as much of an engine even for you today as it is.
And even unfortunately, when I first started, I loved the craft more than I loved the business. Yep. And so my publishing deals were not good when I first started. I suffered a lot because of them, where, you know, my first publishing deal, they took 100% of my publishing. And so, you know, the majority of my albums, but once again, it was a deal that I was not clear on the gravity of it, but I knew that I was giving it up. I just didn't know, I didn't know how deep it was going to affect me. I just wanted to do music. And so there is a business component that a lot of times, even in faith-based music, the faith-based component is always talked so much that it's almost like you are guilted if you want to think about the business part. There's a guilt that, you know, you're supposed to be doing it for God, and so you're not profiting as much as you should. I mean, you know, by God's grace, I've sold almost, you know, 14, 15 million albums. And but when you don't own your publishing,
well, so
those are just numbers.
So this thing, Kirk, this is something we just talked about it for a moment backstage. But let's be real right now. What you just described happens to black artists, black athletes, black creators, black cultural people throughout history, and throughout this country's history. How is that showing up right now? And I mentioned a few bands right now that are identifying again in the praise and worship that have white leadership. How is the industry catching up, or is it still behind when it comes to making sure the dollar paid to the black artists are the same dollars being paid to the white artists? Like, let's be real about this for a moment.
Well, it's not the fundamentals that are now the problem, because more black artists are now aware of what these deals and the ownership should be. That's not the problem now. The problem now that exists is the issues that are still wrapped into the systemic problems, the challenges, meaning that a Christian artist, and when I say Christian, you guys understand there's a difference between Christian and gospel. Most times Christians are going to be more European-based music. The community and the audience, for example, like there is a process called LCLI. I think that's what it's called, where white churches that sing the songs that white Christian artists have written, they're getting publishing from the songs being sung on Sunday morning. Ain't no black church in America paying no black gospel artists to sing their songs at church on Sunday morning. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm torn with that. Like I don't know if a black church should be paying me on Sunday mornings to be singing my music. So I'm not saying that I'm totally bought into it, but I do know that in itself gives you a framework that white Christian artists and white churches are happy to do it. Like white churches are not even arguing against paying Christian songwriters and artists to sing their songs on Sunday. So that even in itself, that goes into the systemic wiring of what white people are raised thinking about business. They don't let their Christianity suffocate their business.
So, wait, say that. Don't let their Christianity suffocate.
They don't let their Christianity suffocate their business. For example, many people here know of a grandmama or great-grandmama that's been going to a church where the building program at that church been going on for the last 50 years. And grandmama been giving all her money to that church, and that church still ain't got that youth annex.
See, he's taking us to church right now.
Can I get a witness? Can y'all know?
I feel right. Now I feel right at home.
Now you feel good. Now you feel good.
Now I feel right at home. Look, you have had such a phenomenal career. Like I said, it's not over. It feels like in lots of ways it's just getting started. You had a documentary come out. Father's Day, you had your newest album come out, which is just lighting up. If we all haven't watched the documentary, if y'all haven't listened, I honestly Check it out. It tells you so much about this man and his greatness and the greatness that he's been blessed to have around him. But what's keeping you energized and motivated? Like, you're still doing this. It's such a high proficiency. You're flying in. You're still coming back from Texas. What's keeping you going?
Well, to be honest with you, is that some people are motivated and stimulated by their trauma. I can be very humble and say that my abandonment issues, not having a mother, not having a father, the abandonment that I've lived through, is that I am driven by the fact that I can't afford for you to forget me. And so I am forever a brand new artist. Every record I do is my first album, is that I can't sleep if you don't like it, because you're not liking it means you don't like me. And so I'm driven. I'm driven more now than ever before. Every project I do, I'm hungry. And I don't have to always get $1 to do it. Like, I've never been driven, and some of that has been to my demise. But overall, the fact that I'm still able to have the bigger conversations of life with people, and they still want to hear me, I'm very grateful to have that opportunity. Yeah.
Well, you are loved, as we can say it in many ways. And again, but.
Yes, I did get enough money to get my teeth fixed, so.
But who, with, again, someone that has had this uncommon favor, which has seen grace in so many different ways.
Amen.
You're now listening to this next generation. Who's getting you excited? I mean, I showed you my playlist backstage. Who's getting you excited?
I love Chandler Moore. I love Jonathan McReynolds. I love Doe. I love the Walls Group. I love. I love, of course, Tasha. I just love anybody. I love Kalante Gavin. I love all the younger artists that are still keeping the bigger conversation going about how dope God is. And so,
what can we do? I mean, because this is another family you're a part of now, the ForbesBLK family, and we talk about all the time that we're not just about wealth, we're about prosperity. We talk about how at ForbesBLK, we're not just about ownership, we're about equity, and we're not just about power, but we're about empowering people.
Yes.
That's the mission. So what advice do you have for all of us as part of this family of ways that we can both support the industry, support maybe some of that, like prevent some of that inequity that's showing up? What can we be doing as the extended family for Kirk?
I think the first thing that can happen, since you know that the origin of all black music in this country was gospel music. Before there was blues, before there was R&B, it originated from gospel. And so because of that, I think that the biggest thing that you can do is you can continue to be loud about the deficiency and not accept the inadequacy of the content. Don't give it a pass just because it's gospel. If it's a gospel tour, a gospel play, gospel music, just don't give it a pass. If it's not high quality, if it's not super serving, if it's not at the level of excellence, be loud about it, critique it. It's because I think sometimes historically when people have conversations about God, about Jesus, you don't want to say anything about it, but that's not making us better. It honestly makes us lazy. And I think that you got to hold the church accountable. You've got to hold the community accountable. The excellence should be the par. And when it's not excellent, be loud and say something, because you cannot let people pass off and think that they're doing good when they're not meeting the bar of what high quality should be.
Yeah, never settle. Never settle.
Never settle. No matter the lyrical content, do not let it settle. Push people and challenge people to be the greatness that they are, not just because they're talking about God.
Y'all, when I asked for this conversation, they said, how long could this conversation be? I'm like, I could talk on stage with him for 2 hours, but Jabari and Randall said no. So we're already scheming to do a little bit of a podcast action on this. But before I let you go, I refer to myself as an applied optimist, because being optimistic in 2024 might be just a bit naive. Like we got some challenges.
Yes.
We heard Stacey Abrams and Ayanna, some great people spoke this morning about how black women are helping lead us through those challenges.
Yes.
And I get an amen for that too.
Yes.
But I guess
and we also have to talk about those misogynistic messages that are also coming from the pulpits of black churches as well. So that's what I'm saying, is that this is the era of deconstruction, and I think that anybody that has a faith that cannot be challenged can easily turn into a cult.
Yeah. So let me ask you one last question. Let me ask you one last question then. So what's keeping you optimistic? How are you an applied optimist? And so when we all, because they're all recording you. Yeah. I'm watching. They're not recording me, although my kicks are cool, but they're recording you.
I've been recorded before, so.
What's keeping you optimistic?
I know what it's like for somebody to put out a recording on you. They got that. You didn't get that, but they got that.
Time's up.
I'll say that what keeps me motivated is more than anything is that I don't have all the answers, and I know the historical challenges that Western Christianity has done to our people, and I know sometimes the financial and the socioeconomic challenges that the church could have done a better job early on, and I don't know all the solutions, but what I don't know does not cancel out what I do know. And what I do know that there's too much about life that I can't put a hand on, science can't put a hand on, intelligence, technology can't, that there's something bigger and somebody bigger that is working all things together for my good. And that's what I sleep in, that's what I believe in, and I still believe that Jesus is the light of the world. So,
amen.
Thank you.
You just crushed that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Kirk Franklin.